Welcome to the changes to the CSBG state plan. Slide. Thanks today for our webinar series in relation to the CSBG state plan and current Federal Register notice. Some background on the OCS guidance in relation to this webinar. The Federal Register notice was released on November 17th and is expected to close January 16th, 2018. We also issued a Dear Colleague, the CSBG State Plan Revision for open comment period. There'll be more background information on what is expected from the states for the Federal Register notice public comment period. Next slide. Today's focus will be to give you guys background on the Paperwork Reduction Act process, as well as planned CSBG webinar series that OCS has planned in coordination with NASDAQ, and give you some insight on the CSBG state plan revision. Next slide. We just want the planned comments are due no later than Tuesday, January 16th, 2018, days from today. So we do a public comment period on the first day. There will be more opportunity to plan for the future. And with that, I'll pass it on to my colleague, Renika Carr.
Thank you. As you know, the Paperwork Reduction Act process is designed to reduce the total amount of paperwork burden the federal government imposes on private businesses and citizens. This is the method that OCS uses to collect information from our grantees regarding changes to the state plan and annual report. Next slide. PRA process. OCS published a Federal Register notice in November of last year to notify the states of the public comment period for the new state plan. This comment period is open for 60 days and will close on January 16th. Again, we are only 1 week away or less than 1 week away from closing, so please write your comments because we want to hear from you. The comment period is tentatively scheduled to take place February to March of this year and will open for 30 days. Next slide. Comment period, which will take place internal to ACF, and this will occur around the time frame of April to May 2018. To finalize the new state plan, OLD will open July 2nd, 2018 for fiscal year 2019 submission. Next slide. We review the dates and content of upcoming webinars for the new CSBG state plan. Next slide. Before we do the list of webinar dates, we highlight the fiscal year 2019 submission group. Group A shows the states that are required to submit a 1- or 2-year plan, and Group B lists those states that are only required to submit a SF-424M for fiscal year 2019, make revisions to their accepted plan. Everyone is invited to join all the webinars. Some are focused on your submission period. Furthermore, while this webinar will only occur once, others will be conducted on an annual basis and better suited during the years for which you are submitting your plan. Today's webinar, as mentioned before, is intended for everyone. Next slide. This series, OCS will conduct 6 webinars for the new CSBG state plan. The webinar is this one in which we are discussing the changes to the plan. This webinar will focus on the state plan preparation, and it will be conducted on an annual basis as a refresher to the states. The target audience is those states in submission group A. Please note that the date for the state plan prep has been changed from what was published in the December 28th Dear Colleague letter from March 13th to March 15th. If you added these webinars to your calendar, please update the date for this webinar. The webinar will take place on April 17th, and it will focus on the requirements around designation letters, authorizing officials, and certification. This webinar is also intended for those in submission group A. on the list titled, "Great, We Made It," will be on May 15th. As we closer to the incorporation of the CSBG state plan, this webinar will focus on the final changes made to the plan based on your comments and feedback. On January 20th, OCS will host the 5th webinar, and that will include a discussion on submitting the state plan, and the target audience is the states in submission group A. Webinar, OCS will discuss the submission of the SF424M. We hope that only Group B attend this webinar, as it is the only group required to submit the SF424M separately from their plan. Now I'll hand it over to Nikki Frazier.
Slide. So I will start with providing a summary of the revisions that have been made to the CSBG state plan. We have changed the name of the report to the CSBG state plan, which is abbreviated as CSP. Section 13, we saw no reason to update. For sections 14 through 15, we did not update because it is quote language from the CSBG Act. Look for additional areas in the plan to revise using available technology, skip logic, and field pre-population. Limits were updated to accurately reflect data entry needs. Look to the plan to identify which areas could meet the need to upload attachments. So, revise and there are fewer sections where attachments are required. We explicit that states should report data based on the federal fiscal year. Next slide. As we have removed the attachment option from several sections, attachments are still required for the designation letter, public hearing documentation, and if the state has adopted alternative organizational standards. Next, so the changes more closely. The fiscal year covered item clear. This is in section 1. This will also affect skip logic and pre-population. Those that will be applying for 1 year will not see year 2 data columns. We have added an item to enter state community action information as well. Next slide. Has been applied to other, in quotations, narratives. So select other on the list. A text will open for you to enter text. Next slide. 2 relates to state legislation and regulation. There were new items added, but item 2.3 was rewritten for clarity. Under Section 3, for state plan development and statewide goals, review the responses. After reviewing the responses, we noticed that this question was confusing, so we separated it for clarification. We also added additional options for 3.3C based on the responses from fiscal year 2016 and fiscal year 2017. Slide. 4 relates to public hearings and legislative hearings. Second, no new items, but item 4.3 was revised. Originally, we requested information if hearings were not held within the last 3 years. This was removed as it is required by statute. And the state to confirm that the public was invited to any combined hearings. Information will be provided in the March 15th State Plan Prep webinar. Next slide. Is related to CSBG eligible entities. No items were added, but there are revisions to items 5.1 and 5.3. For 5.1, states will not be able to update the eligible entity list in the first column. These are all entities in the CSBG eligible entities master list. This will auto-populate item 5.1 and for the master list will be provided in the March 15th State Plan Prep webinar. 5.3 relates to changes to the eligible entity list. Release states provided info as an open narrative, then revised. Slide. As on this slide, it is written to allow states to enter changes related to designation and redesignation, de-designation, and voluntary relinquishment, and merger. I'll turn it over to Monique to review the rest of the section.
Hello, everyone. Section 6 speaks to organizational standards for eligible entities. So we did revise item 6.1, which speaks towards your choice of standards. And 6.1, we created questions 6.1a, 6.1b, and 6.1c. Take into account narratives that are needed based on your choice of standards, and we added skip logic to these questions. Therefore, depending on how you respond to 6.1, will decide whether or not you need to respond to 6.1a, or 6.1b, and 6.1c. Originally, these questions were included in 6.1, but are separate to their own questions. Next slide. Revise 6.1, which speaks towards your choice of standards, and read it for further clarification. Rather than adding your narrative and selecting your choice of standards, in 6.1 you will only select your choice of standards. 6.4a was also updated to be a general question that asks about any eligible entity exceptions for the organizational standards. We realize that when you're completing the annual report, there's for us to pull this information for the states that do have an exemption in annual report D.2 from 1. They created this into a table and made it with the hopes that when we update the annual report, we will be able to pull out if there are exemptions within the state for organizational standards. Help us have further clarity in our organizational standards snapshot. That we do say that we'll select an eligible entity from the drop-down. This is technology that we are still working on. We're hoping that we'll have this completed in time for your fiscal year 2019 CSBG state plan submission. 5, we did a small revision to include an option for states submitting 2-year plans. States are revised during the second year. However, we do request that everyone complete this plan in full if a 2-year state, and if changes do happen, you submitted them within the second year. Next slide. And has no new items. Speaks towards the state use of funds. However, there are quite a few revisions. 7A speaks to the formula description. After reviewing fiscal year 2016 and 2017 plans, we feel it is important to define the formulas. We will pre-populate for future years. I will try to use this description for definition purposes going forward. 7.2, planned allocation, 7.6, allocated funds, and 0.9, remainder discretionary funds are linked. This combined for all three should add to 100%. Addition 7.6 originally allowed for the state to decide whether or not they wanted to provide a dollar amount or percentage. Now updated it so that 7.6 allocated funds only allows for a percentage. 1.2 and 7.9 will now only allow for estimated dollar amount rather than giving the states the option to submit a dollar or a percentage. These were made, again, to help us once we filter into the annual report module. Further, we separated all 3 questions to allow for responses for year 1 and year 2. Again, states will be able to update during year 2 as applicable. We are requesting that all states complete the form in full the first year. It was also updated to the option. On top, you're able to say whether or not you do not have discretionary funds or whether you do not have partnerships to carry out the activities described under 7.9. If you use either of these 2 options, then you do not have to pick out as a partnership. This is a point that needed clarity while reviewing fiscal year 2016 and fiscal year 2017 plan. Next slide. Which speaks to state training and technical assistant, also has no new items. We did general updates to allow for more clarification, setting responses for separate 1- and 2-year responses in 8.1 and 8.1a. And 9.3 TNTA partnerships, we revised this as well. We updated the character limits allowed under the narrative responses and now added options based on responses that were received in fiscal year 2016 and 2017. Next. State linkages and communications, also no new items. We revised Section 9 to not allow for any attachment. And we also updated the character limits for each question where an attachment was previously allowed. 9.9, the communication plan, rather than having it as a free-form table, we updated it to have specific topics or subject matters under which you should provide your communication plan for. While you're required to provide a communication plan for all of them, we are asking that you provide a communication plan for some of these subject matters. Next slide. Monitoring, corrective action, and fiscal controls also has no new items. However, there have been some revisions. 10. Monitoring of eligible entities no longer allows for an attachment. The table is rated by 1 for 1- to 2-year responses, and column will pre-populate from CSBG master list. We'll add an additional column that allows for the state to input an end date. To know who you are planning to visit during the federal fiscal year or years for what you're reporting in CSBG state plan. We also notice that the states who provided attachments fit within the parameters of this table. For that reason that we have removed the options for attachments for this table. Whether you answer yes or no for these questions will decide how you respond to subsequent questions for 10.8 and 10.3.10. LC designation, termination, and redesignation. Original questions read as one question with a yes or no and then an option for a narrative. We have made it so that when you respond yes or no to 10.8, 10.9, or 10.10, you'll then ask for a follow-up narrative based on your response to those questions. Next. Set eligible entity tripartite board has no new items. We did 11.1 and 11.2. For both added options based on responses received in fiscal year 2016 and fiscal year 2017. We kept the narrative at 200 characters, and for 11.2, you're only able to select one option, while you're able to select all that applies. Next. such as individual and community income eligibility requirements. Also, a new item. Update 12.1 to require a narrative when you select the option varies by eligible entity. After discussion and review of the federal fiscal year 2016 and fiscal year 2017 slides, we felt it was important to further clarification for this question. The eligible entity master list is a new form within OLDC. The first time it will be completed is fiscal year 2019, and it will be a separate form from the CSBG state plan. The eligible entity master list will only require an update if an address changes or if new designations, redesignations, designations, mergers, or mutations. The master list only asks a few questions. We do ask for further additional information in 5.1. The master list will also filter into questions or asking about eligible entities. If you have any questions, you please reach out to your program specialist, Monique Alcantara or Nikki Frazier, or NASCAS with any questions in relation to the CSBG state plan federal notice. As a reminder, the Federal Register notice closes January 16, 2018. There is a second public comment period anticipated for February through March, and look forward to receiving your comments. Thank you.